third and final day of the Canadian Blind Hockey Viewing Party presented by AMI and brought to you by the CNIB Foundation. My name's Nico Cardarelli, and I'm once again joined by Canadian Blind Hockey Program Manager Luca DeMontis and Executive Director Matt Morrow. Today's theme is the future of blind hockey and international development, and we're currently joined by Francois Beauregard of Les Bouts de Montréal and the Canadian National Blind Hockey Team.
Hello, everybody.
Francois, thanks for joining us. Later in the show, we'll be joined by Nathan Tree of Blind Ice Hockey UK, who has a huge announcement. And finally, we'll have Mark DeMontis jump on and help us wrap up this weekend. This viewing party has been a great experience so far, and if we can't be together at the Mattamy Athletics Center, why not celebrate #Blind Hockey at Home? Well, Francois, before we check in with you, let's turn to Luca and find out how the #Blind Hockey at Home photo contest has been going.
Nico, it's going great. My phone's been blowing up. I've been getting some emails. I've been getting some pretty cool photos. Definitely, we're going to upload them all to our Facebook page. We're going to create an album, and the gallery is going to be open until 5 p.m. The photo with the most likes is going to win a prize. So we're going to start uploading those photos momentarily. But it's just cool just to see how everyone's getting together and watching these games. Like you said it perfectly there. If we can't be at Mattamy together, let's find the next best way to be together, still sharing our sport. So keep the photos coming. #Blind Hockey at Home. Email them to myself or Matt. Also send them to Nico while he's doing the game calls, right? So we want to get some interaction, and the more photos, the better. And like I said, I've got a couple really good ones I'm about to release.
Well, Francois, you submitted a photo already for the Blind Hockey at Home contest. We know you were partaking in the viewing party yesterday, but we've got you on because you recently took a trip to Finland to help grow the sport. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Well, that was mind-blowing. That's the only way to describe it. I was lucky to be there with Matt and Luca, and we also had Kelly Serbu, captain of Team Canada, and from Ottawa/Halifax. And so the four of us, we went to Finland. Actually, the last weekend of January, first weekend of February, Super Bowl weekend, basically. It's a long trip, but we made it there, and it was beyond our wildest dreams. Antti and Markus over there organized things. They put a bunch of people on the ice. There were about 15 kids for the kids segment, about the same number, about 12, 15 adults. For the adult segment of the camp, we were on the ice Friday twice, Saturday twice, Sunday, and people were into it. Finns are into hockey as much as Canadians are, believe me. They all had, almost practically all of them had previous skating experience or played organized hockey before their eyesight went the wrong way. Actually, surprisingly, a lot of them didn't know each other. So they came from all over the place in Finland. They were attentive, they were enthusiastic, and the skills were there. So it was just a matter of some time of shaking off the rust, because the difference between Friday and Sunday was incredible. By Sunday afternoon, we were able to play 5-on-5 adults, 5-on-5 for the kids. And it was like a real good blind hockey game.
I saw some of the video from that camp, and it looked like it was pretty skilled. And we already saw a little bit of Marcus and Antti, as you alluded to, when they came over to Canada. It looks like Marcus has really improved his game. He's going to be quite the goaltender, I think.
Oh, he's a big guy, for one thing. He reminds me a bit of Oliver Pye. From Halifax, about the same stature, big guy, knows where to stand in the net. Because of his goal ball experience, he's pretty good at going down and back up rapidly.
Sure.
And yes, he's good. And there were a couple of other very good players over there. Mika Antanen, Jukka Pulkinen were amongst those that I had the pleasure of playing with. A couple of youngsters too were surprising out there. So they were Women's players were very good too. I'm sorry if I don't remember everyone's names there, but seriously, it was a remarkable weekend beyond what we could have expected. And the greatest thing is that the following week, all these people booked ice on Friday night for 10 Fridays in a row. Now,
Wow.
obviously, with the lockdown, maybe it's not happening anymore for now. But I know they were able to rack up 4 or 5 Fridays in the month of February. So there is a will, and it's happening.
Oh, that's incredibly exciting for the growth of the sport on an international level. Speaking of international play, you know, you've had the opportunity to represent the country with the national team, and you
Yeah.
helped make history in Pittsburgh. Can you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about how special that experience was for you?
Well, I had the pleasure to make history both in Pittsburgh and Ottawa.
Right. Yes.
Pittsburgh was special because it was the very first time there was national teams of Canada and US facing each other. And if we go back in time 10 years ago, it was like a wild dream to have Team Canada and a Team USA. The team gelled together. There's nothing like being on the road to get a team, you know, gelling as a family and being together, because we were in quote unquote not as a friendly environment as a home turf. Obviously, the Americans were hospitable, but still we were by ourselves out there, and it was a great moment. One of the best memories I have from blind hockey is being on the ice with the gold medal around my neck, with my fellow teammates and coaches, and seeing the flag rise, and you know, hearing the anthem. Well, that gives you goosebumps even now thinking about it.
No question about it. It's a pretty special moment, and again, it was a historical one for
Yeah.
you guys. You know, obviously, the sport of hockey touches so many lives. It means so much to so many people. Can you talk about what blind hockey has done for you? How it's helped change your
For
life?
me personally, it brought me back on the ice. I didn't play organized hockey for 17 years. I got RP, retinitis pigmentosa, so meaning that my eyesight is slowly, you know, depleting, getting away. So I stopped playing regular puck hockey in the early 90s, actually late 80s. For 17 years, I didn't play hockey. I didn't know blind hockey existed. Found out about blind hockey in 2005. Before that, I was kind of the lonely, partially sighted person, because I didn't know practically anybody in the blind community, really. It was like a lot of people in the same situation. I thought I was like, quote unquote, the only one in the world, whatever, and feeling a little bit miserable for myself, whatever. But in 2005 came along, I just saw an ad about the de Montréal, the Montreal local blind hockey team, and I just called up. Gilles Ouellette from the EBU answered. He said, yeah, we have a game in 2 days from now. We have spare equipment if you don't have all of yours, and that's it. So December 28, 2005, I stepped on the ice for the first game as an EBU, and frankly, I didn't miss any more games since then, or very little. And it changed really my perspective, and now a bunch of my best friends are also blind and partially sighted and hockey players, and so it goes beyond just being a hockey player. We share the same experience, the same challenges, and we all have gone beyond the barriers in our own ways, so we can be proud of ourselves.
You know, Francois, just one last thought here, and again, I can't thank you enough for taking time to join us here today.
It's a pleasure.
But in terms of that experience in Finland, when you think about the growth of the game internationally, what is most promising to you? What was maybe the biggest takeaway from that experience in that camp?
Well, the biggest takeaway is that blind, partially sighted people who have a hockey background are taking into blind hockey immediately, regardless of, you know, other circumstances. Sweden, there was a couple of people from Sweden at that camp as observers, and they wish to start a program over there. Russia is a bit more, I would say, in their own end, doing their own things, but it's obvious they already started a program for kids. Luca was there to meet them in December. So it is coming. The Canadians, then the US, Finland is now rolling. Russia also, Sweden is not too far behind. So the dream of bringing the teams together at a World Cup and then eventually moving up to Paralympic level is there. It's not something we just made up. It's actually happening.
Well, that's incredibly exciting, and it's trending the right way. And earlier you had mentioned that Matt was there in Finland helping with that camp. So Matt, what were some of your thoughts on helping as a coach with that Finnish program?
I think Francois really summed up the camp really well. He said it was a mind-blowing experience. I was thinking back to 2014, Mark DeMonis really wanted to host the first ever youth blind hockey camp, and then we were successful getting a grant from the Darryl K. Seaman Canadian Hockey Fund. And then myself, Luca, and Coach Paul Cairns sat down together and we said, so what's next? No one had ever done a training camp for blind hockey before, right? So we had to sit down and we had to say, which drills from our traditional hockey background are going to be applicable to blind hockey, and which drills aren't, and what are the levels going to be? So really, over the last 6 years, we've kind of perfected our blind hockey model and for training camps. And we've taken that, we've hosted it annually in Canada, we've done mini camps, we've taken it across the US. And I think what was really neat was, as Francois mentioned, everybody that signed up for the Finnish camp had a skating background. So really hard to do a hockey camp if most of your players are non-skaters. You're essentially, forced to basically do a learn to skate session. What was neat about this weekend was we took the 5-day Canadian blind hockey training camp model and we condensed it into 3 days. So Antti and Marcus had actually come over and participated in the 2018 training camp. So they knew what to expect already. And we worked with them to highlight kind of which drills that they wanted to do from our camp. And so we weren't able to quite do everything. But also, as Francois mentioned, with 6 ice times over 3 days, from the first session on Friday morning to the last session on Sunday was a night and day difference. And we were able to play a full game of buzzer hockey with a youth and intermediate 10-on-10, or 5-on-5 rather, and then a more advanced 5-on-5. So I would say personally that just seeing the talent they had there, Finland is not far away from being able to have a Finnish national team. Maybe a couple other key pieces, but they would not look out of place in a tournament with USA, Canada, and then hopefully soon Russia and Sweden. So a lot of great things going on. Thanks a lot, Francois, for making that trip. And as you mentioned, Kelly Serbu for coming. Pretty unreal experience. But as Francois mentioned, if you're blind or partially sighted and you can skate and have any interest in hockey, it doesn't matter where you live in the world. You can get out there and start participating in a program. No problem at all.
Oh, that's incredibly exciting, and the future is certainly bright for the growth of the game on an international level. Francois, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time. Next up, we've got Nathan Tree from Blind Ice Hockey UK, and I'm told he has a huge announcement, so stay tuned for that. Welcome back to the 2020 Canadian Blind Hockey Viewing Party, presented by AMI and brought to you by CNIB Foundation. Well, after our break, we're very now pleased to be joined by Nathan Tree, who's a blind hockey player out of Oxford, England, and the founder of Blind Ice Hockey UK. Well, Nathan, welcome to the show.
Hi, Nico. Great to be here.
Well, Francois, we had him in the first segment. He told us about the exciting new program in Finland. And before I ask you some questions, Nathan, Luca, you represented blind hockey at the World Hockey Forum in Moscow, Russia this past December. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience and how the Russian program is forming?
For sure, Nico. Definitely. I'd love to speak on this topic. It was a true learning experience. I could definitely tell you that. I've never really traveled by myself anywhere. So to travel to Moscow, Russia alone was something very special. But I was very honored to represent Canadian blind hockey and the sport of blind hockey there. It was great because I also got to go on the ice with the kids, right? So Russia's doing a lot for hockey with individuals who have a disability, right? They're really kind of paving the way out there in Europe, which is good to see. The NHL uses a slogan, hockey is for everyone. Russia kind of has a slogan called #HockeyFamily. So one of the first things they did was welcome me and Canadian blind hockey to their hockey family. So that was very reassuring in being in a country where you don't really have many connections or many friends. But you know what? I could honestly credit Natalia and Ariana for a lot of support throughout the week I was there. As I mentioned, I got to go on the ice with the kids. There was about 8 children and youth who were blind and partially sighted that took part in a practice with Coach Leo. Coach Leo and myself, we've been in constant communication ever since I got back, just providing him drills to use at practice. And he's got a lot of questions, like a lot of new people do have when they're new to the sport, right? So it was a true learning experience. The pinnacle moment for it was I got to speak at the World Hockey Forum, and I got to share my experience of the sport, blind hockey. I got to share some information with them. And there was some big names in this room, you know what I mean? From Renee Fasal to, it just keeps going down the list, right? And Russian Hockey Federation, a huge sponsor, supporter of putting on the event. So there was some big Russian hockey icons in the building also, right? And that added, I think, to the whole experience, just being in their city, being in Moscow. And this was the 4th World Hockey Forum. So one thing they ensured me was every year it keeps getting bigger. And it was the first time where they had a section and a topic with a speaking panel for disabled hockey. So there was sledge hockey, there was an us blind hockey on hand. So it was cool. It was a great learning experience. I was truly honored to be there, as I mentioned. And I think one of the things that I learned from it is that we are still learning ourselves, right? We are still learning, I'd say daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, how to be the best we can be. And by attending conferences such as these and attending other shows and other speaking opportunities, I know myself as an individual, I grew drastically from attending something like that, right? Just talking to different partners, talking to different directors of blind hockey in other countries, right? And I've got a lot of faith in Russian Hockey Federation and the power that they're going to put forth to work with the Russian blind hockey group, because I think in Russia, from what I saw, hockey's their sport, right? Hockey is played year-round. They invest a lot of financial assets into hockey, right? So that's truly rewarding for us to see, because we could see, hey, they believe there's a future for blind hockey there, and with our help, we're going to get them to where they want to be. Since I got back, I've been able to communicate with, as I mentioned, coaches, Ariana, Natalia, just about the overall program and what rate are they progressing at, how we could help them from over here in Canada, right? Maybe it's through equipment such as pucks and jerseys. And as I mentioned, we want to pride ourselves on being the leaders of the world in blind hockey. And like world leaders do, they help out other countries that need the help early in the stages, right? And we're here to help any country that really needs the proper help to grow programming and to one day ice a national team. And, you know, we've got goals of where we see this sport getting. And I think us getting over to Russia and Finland, as Francois mentioned, these are the early steps that we're taking to make sure that this sport is played around the world.
That's incredibly exciting stuff, Luca, and it really speaks to the growth of the sport on an international level. Well, one of the people helping to grow the sport on the international level is with us right now, and we'd be remiss if we didn't start getting him involved. As Nathan, we're so thrilled to have you on the panel here today. And I just want to ask you a little bit, starting with your experiences. How long have you been playing blind hockey, for folks that may not know you, and maybe what's the most rewarding part of being involved in the sport for you?
Okay, so I started playing blind hockey 2 years ago when I reached out to Matt, and Matt said, hey, fly out to Toronto, come play nationals. Anyone who was at that tournament knows I didn't really play. I got injured straight away, but still fell in love with the game at the time. I've now been out to nationals a couple more times and to a couple training camps. So I'm really sad to not be there right now, but we all know what's happening there. And yeah, since then I've been trying to build it back in the UK because I want some more people to play with.
So we want to elaborate on the program you're building there, but you're a bit of a trailblazer globally. You're the first blind hockey player not from North America, and from a country that's a non-traditional ice hockey country. What made you want to get involved with the sport in the first place?
So I grew up playing roller hockey and street hockey, and with a bit of ice hockey mixed in there when I could afford it and I could get the time. It's quite expensive to play here. Then my now fiance said, "Why aren't you playing anymore?" When I started losing my vision, I just couldn't see what I was doing, and she just jumped straight onto Google and went, "Well, these guys are doing it, so why can't you do it?" And then I really fell back in love with the game again.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I know that you and your fiance, Ginny, have come over for a number of events. I really want to talk a little bit about the summer training camp we held in Toronto, because you were here for that one. And you took on, I think your personality opened up a lot more than it already had. And you've kind of taken on a bit of a mentorship role to some of the younger players. Can you talk a little bit about your experience helping to coach some of the youth?
Yeah, sure. So well, if I go a bit further back, I used to have a kind of a job coaching street hockey to children in the UK, and I also in my job I work with blind children. So it just seemed a kind of natural progression to me to come out and have a go and help to coach the kids, and I just get really excited about that. They have such enthusiasm and such skill. I can't see a reason why I wouldn't want to do so.
No, I know the kids were super excited to have you out there on the ice with them, so we'll keep looking forward to that. But one of the great things you've been doing is founding Blind Ice Hockey UK. So I want to ask you more about that. How have the events that you've done so far been going, and what's the participation been like so far?
Okay, so I've done 3 events so far. The first one was helped out by a contact I made whose name was Matt Lucas, who was actually our goalie for the GB sled hockey team. And he knew all about, he was instrumental in bringing sledge hockey to this country. So he really wanted to help. And so one day I just got a message from him saying, "I've booked you some ice time." And we really had to scramble together. This rink was 3.5 hours drive from where I live. So I put some messages out on Facebook and different groups. And the next thing I knew, we were out there playing and had about, I think it was 14 visually impaired people come to our first ever session.
Wow.
It was a kind of slower session. There was only 2 of us in full equipment. The rest had helmets, gloves, sticks, and skates. And we just had some fun with it, really. From there, I've managed to convince some people from the Oxford University Ice Hockey Club, where I play, to kind of sponsor the sport a little bit. So they managed to invest some money in getting us a few ice times and some equipment. So we've had 2 more ice times based here in Oxford, where again, they've been quite well attended. Even some people that were at that original session have driven all the way down to come play. And so now we've had 3 sessions total and had about 30 different people attend, including 2 who've come to every session so far. Unfortunately, we've had to cancel 2 sessions at the moment. I was supposed to have one last weekend, and I'm supposed to have one next month. But I'm sure we'll be able to reschedule them coming up whenever the rinks are open again.
Sure, of course. Well, that's exciting stuff and incredible turnout so far. Great job by you and everyone involved. Now, obviously, you're pretty comfortable in front of the camera, so I want to deviate from hockey just for a second, because you've got a bit of a hidden talent, or maybe not so hidden talent, because you starred in a Burger King commercial last year. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
I did. So basically, there was a casting agent came up on Facebook and was just like, "We need a visually impaired male between these ages to come and do something." And I was like, "Oh, I'll give it a go," kind of thing. This was actually 2 weeks before I first flew out to Toronto, and so I had this interview with this documentary maker from Germany, and he flew to England just to come and meet with me, just to see if we could do this. And we kind of went for it. And it turned out to be this huge thing. It had a €500,000 budget. And I had this fake guide dog with me that had been trained to just do whatever I said. And this 25-person film crew just showed up at my house. Spent a week filming. We went to Paris. It was just absolutely mad. I'm happy to share the video if anyone wants to see it. They even showed up to my varsity game between Oxford University and Cambridge University and filmed, and all the fans were like, "What is this guy doing?" It was an absolutely incredible experience.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Fantastic. Nathan, if people want to learn more about Blind Ice Hockey UK, how can they get in touch with you? How can they find out more about the programs that you're facilitating?
If you go to Blind Ice Hockey UK on Facebook, we're quite active there, and we post all the events and different updates on there. We're also at Blind Hockey UK on Twitter.
Phenomenal. Now, before we wrap up our kind of one-on-one here, I heard you have a major announcement. So I want to give you the opportunity to share your news with the community.
Sure. So right now I am announcing that this fall we are going to be having the first ever European Blind Ice Hockey Summit.
That's incredible. That's very exciting.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. We've got the rink ready to go and everything. We just want people to come and get involved.
Well, that's incredible news. I'm sure we're all really excited to find out more details, and I'm sure you'll get quite a few people messaging you directly to hear more about this, but that's really incredible news.
Great. Thanks, Nico.
Of course, absolutely. So, Matt, let's get you involved here because you've been helping to lead the way with the international development of the sport, first into the United States, now into Europe. Tell us a little bit more about this step of founding the Blind Ice Hockey Summit.
Sure. I mean, I think this is a critical and logical step in the development of the sport. So in 2010, we're about 2 months shy of the 10-year anniversary of the first meeting we ever hosted for Canadian blind hockey. And we got stakeholders from the Eclipse, the Ice Owls, and the EBU together, as well as Courage Canada, and I was with Canadian Blind Sports at the time. And we said, okay, how do we turn this thing into a sport? How do we get everybody together? And what we decided at the time was we were going to host basically a summit. We didn't call it that at the time, but we invited every blind hockey player in Canada to come to the Défi Sportif in 2011. And from there, we were able to workshop, coaching techniques, rules, game formats, you name it. And, the proof is in the pudding. You see what we've built over the last 10 years. It's now a thriving parasport all across the country. There's about 11 programs going in Canada right now on a regular basis and hundreds of participants of all ages. So in 2013, when we had our very first American player, that was Kevin Shanley, who had come up to our first Canadian National Blind Hockey Tournament. And we started talking to him about how we could grow the sport in the US. So we took that model that we had put together and used successfully in Canada, and we brought it to the States. And that became the USA Hockey Blind Ice Hockey Summit. So that event is now, it's taking place in Newburgh, New York in 2014 and 15, took place in Chicago in 2016, Pittsburgh in 2017 and 18, and now Minnesota in 2019. So, and that event has actually since been renamed the USA Hockey Blind Hockey Challenge. So it matches all the other disciplines of disabled hockey, and the next one is scheduled for this fall in St. Louis. That event has really spurred the growth across the USA. There's now 20 programs in the US. They've got their own national team that competes against Canada each year. And so when we see how effective this model's been in both Canada and USA, it was really natural that we would try to figure out a way to host it in Europe. Nathan being our first non-North American player, I mean, we've been talking about this with him for the last several years. Luca mentioned he's gone to Russia, so there's 3 youth programs in Russia. As Francois mentioned, a group of us went to Finland. Finland's got a full-on program going. Later this month, or rather next month, in late April, we were supposed to be going to Sweden to help Sweden start their program. There's about a dozen interested people. So really natural that we would work with such a trusted partner like Nathan and Blind Ice Hockey UK and put on this summit. And I honestly, Nathan and I were talking about the challenges and logistics of planning it. And I honestly think there's going to be almost too many people who want to go and be part of this historic event. So we're trying to lock down as much ice as possible, as many hotel rooms as possible. We were going to have a formal announcement with a schedule and everything that Nathan was actually going to announce at the banquet at Canadian Nationals. So again, we're not together in Mattamy, but this is the next best thing. So thanks a lot, Nathan, for all your hard work and also for hosting this summit for us.
Thanks.
That's all incredibly exciting stuff, guys. Well, we're going to step aside for a quick break, and then we're going to wrap up the show with one final guest, as Mark DeMontis is going to be joining us. Nathan, thanks again so much for taking the time here, and we look forward to the summit this fall. Folks, stay tuned. No problem. Stay tuned. You're watching the 2020 Canadian National Blind Hockey Viewing Party. All right, fans, welcome back for the final segment of the 2020 Canadian Blind Hockey Viewing Party. And we're now extremely excited to be joined by Toronto Ice Owl and Canadian National Blind Hockey Team player, Mark DeMontis. Mark, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Nico.
Absolutely. Before we get into it with Mark, let's talk about some of the great interaction we've had with hashtag Blind Hockey at Home. Matt, what's been your favorite thing so far?
Lots of great content, Nico, but I have to say personally, Denise McKecken, who's a great friend, wonderful blind hockey mom, and huge supporter of the program, she blew all of us away today. She posted a gallery of Alec Angus and Mary Ellen, who were both blind hockey players over the years, all the way dating back to the Halifax to Toronto inline skate campaign. And you can just see the kids grow as they participate in the programs. I think Alec Angus must be the poster child for Canadian blind hockey programs, because there's pics of him at a try-it session. There's pics of him at the Halifax to Toronto rollerblade campaign. There's pics of him as the flag bearer at the first ever national tournament, because believe it or not, at the time we told him he was too small to play with the adults. There's pics of him playing in the first nationals he was allowed in. He was at the first youth camp, and of course he is one of the inaugural members of the Canadian National Blind Hockey Team. So he's really risen through the ranks, both figuratively and literally. It's crazy, Mark. I saw a picture from Halifax with, you're towering over Alec Angus. And of course, now that you're teammates together on the national team, he is quite a bit taller than you 9 years later.
Oh, that's great stuff, guys. Luca, you've been getting a lot of submissions as well. What's caught your eye?
Yeah, definitely got a lot of submissions. I've gotten a lot of text messages, some cool photos. I think if I didn't bring it to the forefront, Joey Cabral, that photo is amazing. Like that's typical Joey Cabral for the people that know him and love him. You know what I mean? He's always ready for a blind hockey game to break out. But I think one that really touched me close to home was Graham Foxtrot. Wow, that photo of him wearing the first ever Courage Canada jersey. But I think what's even cooler about that photo is he's holding his award for being the first ever MVP of the 2013 Canadian National Blind Hockey Tournament, which was a jersey that we gave him. So that's a super cool photo, just with everything going full circle. So there's been a lot of submissions that have been great, and every submission that has come in has definitely been great in its own way. But I think those two are two photos that have really, one's made me laugh extremely loud during these times, and the other has really hit a soft spot with me.
And just to clarify for our blind viewers at home, the Joey picture, Joey took it upon himself to put on all of his goalie gear and sit on the couch for the viewing party. So he really was doing blind hockey at home.
He was ready. I told him he got a shutout in that game too.
I'm sure he said he played his best.
Oh yeah, for sure, bro.
I was just trying to find that Joey picture. We'll get it up before the end of the before the end of the show here. We had a look at that picture from Graham. And again, we want to encourage everyone to continue to send in submissions using the hashtag blindhockeyathome. Well, speaking of Courage Canada, let's turn to the other DeMontis on our wing here today and check in with Mark. Mark, how have you been enjoying this blind hockey at home viewing party?
Well, it's been great to see the spirit online. Unfortunately, we've been unable to celebrate in person this year due to everything happening in the world. But knowing how strong our community is and how interactive we've become, the project that you put on here too has been a first step in bringing everyone together. So kudos to all of you for that. It's not the same, but it's better than nothing. I can tell you that.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, ideally, we all would have been at the Mattamy Athletic Center this weekend, and we would have been getting ready for championship games, and that would have been phenomenal. But obviously things have changed, and we're adapting on the fly, and I think we're making the most of everything here. And I think this weekend, in terms of being innovative and adaptive, I think it kind of speaks to the journey that the sport of blind hockey has had over the past 10 years. Mark, can you maybe talk a little bit about how you've witnessed change in the sport from, when we think about your 10-year anniversary of the Quest to the West, where you rollerbladed across the country, and where we are today, where we're hosting international camps? What does that mean to you when you think about that journey?
I think it's a true testament to the commitment from the community, first and foremost. I think it's also it's great to see the growth. I mean, in order to understand the growth, I think we have to take folks back to a time maybe 10 years ago in terms of where we were and how far it has come. I mean, there was a time when, and I'm dating myself, first and foremost, that picture with me and Mini Mac, I call it, with him before that 2011 tour. I am older than some players at that time in that photo than players on the national team now. That's how old I am. So I'm at 32. I've seen a lot with blind hockey in about 15 years. I can say that. And there was a time I remember when I first joined the Ice Owls. It was 2004 after I lost my sight, and it was that moment when you first walk into a dressing room and you join a new hockey team. And you're not sure what this team will be like and how you'll get along with your teammates, and you almost felt like a kid again. To learn through the Ice Owls about the history of the sport and how it was grown in many ways, isolated across the country with different rules and different pucks, and to see how far we've come now, thinking about the idea of being Paralympic bound. Again, it's a testament to the community's commitment, but it's also part of the evolution of life in some ways too. History, the one thing you can't change no matter how hard you try. And everyone in the community who's watched throughout the weekend the tournament, even though you've been at home, you've still been a part of history. And I think that's one thing that to note.
That's a really interesting perspective, and I'm glad you brought up the historical aspect, because you have a very special footnote in the history of international blind hockey. When we think back to that series in Pittsburgh, you scored the first ever international goal in a game between Canada and USA. It was a historic moment. And I think for a lot of people who, know your story, it was sort of a fitting moment that you got that first goal. When you think about your journey with the national team, can you elaborate on that and how special it's been to be in that locker room with really a group of brothers?
Yeah, I mean, it's to say we're a hockey team wouldn't speak to how close we are as a family. I mean, we are as tight knit as can be, and I mean, starting from our journey back in 2018, where we came together to take on Team USA in Pittsburgh, to recently, obviously in 2019, taking on the Americans in Ottawa, our nation's capital. That it's interesting when I look back at that first goal. There was a big part of me after it was scored. I wasn't too surprised. I had the luck on it. I usually get the luck on my stick when you need it most, right? But I think for me it wasn't that goal that for me was a point for myself in terms of an accomplishment. I think that first goal was just the opening of the floodgates to blind hockey moving forward in general around the world. So for me, it was a memorable moment. I think I had this little feeling. I'm not trying to say I pulled a Paul Henderson or anything here. I'm just saying I had a little feeling that I felt good in warm-ups and going into it. When coach puts you on a line with Kelly Serbu, you know you're going to get shots, right? So I try to pick up a puck behind the net, and I try to shift Goist one way and then shift back the other way. And lo and behold, the start of international blind hockey began.
Well, you mentioned Doug Goist, the goalie for Team USA. I've been able to find the Joey Cabral picture, so we're going to share that here because I think this is something everyone's going to want to see. So it should be up on your screens now as we get a look of Joey celebrating #BlindHockeyAtHome in full gear. He is ready to take some shots from his national team teammate, Mark DeMontis. What a beauty.
He just called me too, and he said, "Oh, did you see the photo?" And I was like, "No, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, I haven't seen anything." And he explained it all to me, and I let him know after. Yeah, I saw it, and it's awesome. And he looks sharp. He looks great. He's man. We talk about Joey all the time because we're a close pal, but to see how far he's come as an athlete in the past couple of years. He's come a long way, and not only has he become an inspiration, but he's really proven a lot of people wrong. And so I'm not surprised by the fact he's ready to go. He truly is right now ready to go. He's looking good.
Mark, before we wrap things up and move on to the rest of the show here, I want to talk a bit about your work with mentoring some of the young players. You talked about the special relationship you have with Alec Angus McEachran. You guys have roomed for tournaments. You also have a special bond with young guys like Joe Fernazier and the next crew of youth coming up as well. So why is it so important for you to almost pay it back in a way?
I was there one time. I know where they are in life, and I know where they are in terms of the game. Like we talked about that first time I walked in the Ice Owls dressing room. I mean, when I saw still call him Little Joe, he's going to be towering over me like ABAC. When I saw Joe walk in there his first time, I saw a part of me too. I could relate to it, and I think that's a pretty special thing. I mean, a really cool story we don't often tell is there was a time back, and I know Maddie would know this, when we used to do the youth programs at the Surrey School Board, and Graham Foxtrot, a true courageous Canadian, would travel a few hours on the bus. Matt at the time was with Canadian Blind Sports. I was about 24, 25 years old and with Courage Canada. And there was another youth I came across in the Surrey School Board that he'd give me a run for my money, literally out on the ice, skating around. And I was something special about the kid, his energy, his passion, his love for the game, his maturity. And years later, it's funny to think I play on the same national team with that kid, and that's Anthony Chula. So I think that's a pretty cool story, and it's to see their growth over the years and to be a part of it. One day they're going to be mentoring players too, and for me, I don't know how long I'm going to be on this team. I mean, I'm getting older. I don't take it for granted. I can tell you that. So they're pushing me and motivating me every day right now as we're off through the lockout. And I still got off the phone with Little Joe the other night, and he's working hard and he's motivating me. So as much as I'm being a mentor to them, they're doing it back in return to me, bringing me inspiration as I need it sometimes too, right? So, but great kids, and it's funny I can say that.
We'll check back in with you in just a few moments, but for now, we're going to do something special here, as this is always a big weekend for birthday celebrations in the community. So right now, and we've got some production music here, some happy birthday going.
I thought you wanted me to sing happy birthday for a second, Nico.
I mean, I was going to put the music in, but Luca, if you want to sing, we can do that too.
I think the fans want to hear the music.
Okay. All right, so cue the music and let's get our birthday shout-outs. And we'll start with Maya Serbu, who's celebrating a birthday. One of our favorite goaltenders, Lorne Weber, celebrating a birthday as well. How about the Minister of Defense, Tristan Lindbergh? Happy birthday, buddy. Gilles Ouellette from the Ibu de Montreal, along with his Ibu teammate, Hugo Duke, celebrating birthdays. And one of our more senior but our most beloved players. Joseph Del Grande celebrating a birthday as well. We want to wish everybody a happy birthday, and if we missed anyone in the community, we apologize, but we also wish you a happy birthday too. All right, so let's talk about yesterday's games. Luca, what did you think about that youth game yesterday?
Let me just pull up my notes here, Nico, because I've got a couple of them. First thing, the future is in good hands. These kids were incredible. As Matt mentioned, on the Fridays, we had more of a balancing skate. By Sunday, these kids played in a full blind hockey game, action both ways, big saves, but I got to give a huge shout out to our GTA youth program, Anthony Paplin, scoring a hat trick, the first ever hat trick in a youth blind hockey game. So the kid deserves a shout out for that, but everybody played great. I think it's probably, I've said it already this weekend, it's been one of my favorite games to watch, right? When the kids are out there just having fun, there's no pressure on the line. They're just playing the game we all love. But definitely Anthony Paplin, huge game. Oliver Gannot, two-way player, great. You know what I mean? It's just incredible to watch these kids play the game that they love. They got so much skill, but I really have to give a huge shout out to those two kids. Moving on to the open division, another hat trick, right? James the Train Ruddle. I heard the nickname you gave him, so that's a good one. But Chaz Maraca, that guy was all over the ice. You know what I mean? It was his first tournament ever playing blind hockey. I think I met him a couple months before that, and he was a very easy person to persuade to come to the tournament. Loves hockey, still plays the game, plays sighted hockey with friends, and he just fell in love right away. And you know what? He played great in that game, but you got to really give a shout out to everybody that took part in both games, both the youth and the open division games.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember Chaz coming up to me after that tournament saying, man, my family was watching online. They loved it. You kept saying spinorama. I must have done some spinorama. I don't even know what you were talking about, but it was awesome, man. So no question. He's a guy who loves the game and is having a good time out there. Now, Matt, we want to tee up the game that we've got coming up because it's the final game of our 2020 Canadian Blind Hockey Viewing Party. So, Matt, tell us a little bit about what we're about to watch.
Yeah, well, not only is it the final game of the viewing party, it was the final game of the 2019 Canadian Nationals. And, as you've experienced throughout the weekend, everybody watching, it was such a special tournament last year with 5 different divisions, nearly 150 players all across North America. Even Nathan from England was there. So, 3 countries represented. I think Kelly said it best earlier when he was on the other show and said that 2019-2020 was such a great season, and if you look at kind of a graph and how we grew slowly, rapidly, and now it's really starting to explode. So obviously disappointed that we couldn't host the event this weekend, but I think when we look back to where we were a year ago, it's still very impressive to see the quality of play. And for anybody that hasn't watched it yet, we won't ruin the ending, but this is one of the more exciting blind hockey games that's ever happened. It's the select division. So these are the top blind hockey players in the world. It was a 3-team tournament. We had Team USA come to Toronto for the first time. And then the Canadian national team program was divided into 2 teams. So we had Canada West, which was made up of players primarily west of Ontario, and Canada East, which was Ontario East. I believe maybe with a few substitutions just for balance. But all these teams, USA, Canada East, Canada West, they put on just an absolute clinic over the weekend. For those that want more blind hockey content once the viewing party is done, all those games are on our YouTube. And any game that AMI has ever broadcast for us is also on AMI audio. So if you go to wherever you download your podcasts, give AMI Audio a follow. You can find tons of blind hockey games on there as well. So this last game, as it happened, it was Canada East versus Canada West, and it was for the tournament. It wasn't a winner take all. I'm not going to quite spoil it, but going into it, either team could win the series. And we had Toronto Maple Leafs legend Doug Gilmour on hand, drop the ceremonial opening puck, and he actually joined you in the broadcast and shared his thoughts on blind hockey. So all in all, a fantastic video to watch. The AMI audio team from the neutral zones involved. We've got Mike Ross, the PA announcer for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and an AMI audio personality. I really think you're going to enjoy this final game.
Yeah, that was a really special day, a special game, a special broadcast we were able to do through Parasport TV. And yeah, having Doug Gilmore join us in the booth was a pretty special experience as well. Mark, you played in that game for Canada East. What are your thoughts on the quality of play that blind hockey has risen to playing in that particular tournament?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that game, one of the biggest things about that match was when when the game was over, it was probably hands down the fastest blind hockey game to ever be played at that time, at that point in history, about a year ago. So I think for me it was, and this is just for to get everyone excited for the game. It was the fastest the game has ever been. It was history again. It was history in the making. I remember the ending. I can tell you that. I will say his 4 words: Paul Schmolt from Edmonton. That's what I'll say. And I mean, look, we were all winners. I know that's cliche to say, but no matter who won at the end of the day, Canada was on top, and I don't think it really hit too many of us hard. I mean, it's never great losing, but what was the biggest one out of all of it was where we had all brought the game to in 3 periods, I think, and to that level and setting that bar. Now seeing new athletes and new players in the mix, players like Lindbergh and Raymond and Fornazier, and to think of where we're going from a competition level and the fact that we're just getting started. I think that's the best thing about the game is, again, it was the fastest many of us had ever seen it or thought it could ever get to, and an ending that is always one for the books. But I can tell you this, I know I spoke to a few refs after that one, and the ref said, if this is what it's going to get to, he said, then there truly is something special here.
Guys, it's been an incredible couple days here, and it's kind of been a whirlwind of an experience. This all came together so quick, but Matt, Luca, this viewing party was really an incredible idea, and it was truly so fun to be a part of. I'm just kind of curious, what are your thoughts about what we did over this weekend, and are we going to do this again going forward? I want to. This was a lot of fun.
Absolutely, Nico. I think, first off, on behalf of Canadian Blind Hockey, thank you, not only for this weekend, but for being the voice of blind hockey. I know you make the sport accessible to our players who couldn't otherwise watch it, and you remain an immensely popular figure in our blind hockey community. So very glad that you were able to be a part of it. As you mentioned, it was very last minute. But I think we pulled off a great product. We're getting nothing but great feedback. One of the projects Canadian Blind Hockey's talked about for a while is potentially launching a podcast or a series or just, a regular weekly blind hockey information. And from everything that I've seen and heard, this format seems to be awesome. So I think you can look for Canadian Blind Hockey to be putting out videos similar to this viewing party on a more regular basis moving forward with a wide variety of guests. And I think anybody that's involved in blind hockey knows in our community there's so many great stories and so many people do amazing things on and off the ice. And I think that we could have a never-ending source of content that would be very interesting for us all to watch. So look out for more stuff in the future for sure.
Well, guys, I want to thank you all. Mark, thanks for joining us here in our final segment. Matt, Luca, thanks for doing the yeoman's work here, joining me all weekend long. We put in a lot of hours, but I can't thank all you guys enough for your work here this weekend. This has been the 2020 Canadian Blind Hockey Viewing Party presented by AMI and brought to you by CNIB Foundation. Canadian Blind Hockey programming is made possible by AMI, CNIB Foundation, and national partners, the Daniel Family Foundation, Electra Health, and Mannion. The 2020 Canadian Blind Hockey Viewing Party is also supported by Ryerson University, the Toronto Education Workers, and as well as many individual donors who had contributed in support of the 2020 national tournament. Thank you for your support. Fans, to everyone who watched at home, thank you for being a part of this weekend. We hope you enjoyed #BlindHockey at home, and we hope that you enjoyed this final game.